Hello, everybody. This is Chris Hampton. I am Champ I Am, and I am welcoming you to the first Champ I Am Summit. And my God, we have a list of speakers that are for you, but I'm so excited to introduce you to this particular speaker. He's a sage. He's an elder in our community when it comes to empowering people of color to take their life to the next level when it comes to financing, networking, and building their business and their personal wealth. I have Dr. George C. Fraser here, and I'm just give you a little bit about him. Dr. Fraser had insisted for 40 years that there be no sizzle reel of his life work and purpose until there was something to quantify and sizzle about. He was born in 1945 in Brooklyn, New York, to a troubled family of 11 children. After serious mental health issues with his mom, at 2 years old, he and 6 of his siblings were orphaned and then put into the toxic foster home system for a total of 16 years. He was not considered to be college material. So he was sent to a vocational high school and got a diploma in carpentry. For the rest, it's history. Dr. Fraser has always believed it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that God has great plans for each of us. We must simply listen for his voice. That's good. Follow his directions and overcome the obstacles and stay the course. Dr. Fraser's favorite line from the super rapper Drake: started from the bottom, and now we're here. Here is 79 years of life in 120 seconds. And then the next voice you'll hear is
Christopher, thank you. Welcome, everybody, to this outstanding series. It is just an honor to be a part of this. It's an honor to be a part of the intellectual rigor that Christopher brings to the whole sphere of championship with Champ I Am. I just love it. I am going to talk to you today about a couple of things. I'm sort of going to give you a 30,000-foot view of the challenges that we are faced in the 21st century that we will certainly overcome. And I just want to remind you, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, that old keys will not open new doors, and that a house divided among itself will not stand. And Just in case no one has ever told you, ain't nobody saving black people but black people. It's been 400 years and we ain't saved. Who in the hell are we waiting for? We're waiting for us. And that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, brothers and sisters and kings and queens. Yes, giants. And we must never, ever, ever forget that. A 250-year fight for our freedom from 1619 to 1864. 250 years, I'll fight for freedom. Another 100 years for civil rights, voting rights, and public access. Okay? Um, it just doesn't get any more difficult than that. And one way any better than that. And so the big question that we have to ask ourselves, this is a heck of a legacy of the giants whose shoulders we're standing on. The question, again, that we have to ask ourselves is, are we worthy of that legacy? And if you believe that we are worthy of such a legacy, what then will be our legacy? What will our children's 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 children be saying about us 150 years from now? Now, I'm not talking about baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer. We know what our legacy is: civil rights, voting rights, and public access. I'm talking about generations X, Y, and Z. What will their legacy be about? What will their children's children's children be saying about them 150, 200 years from now? So I hope that it will be economics is the new black power. That's what I hope that it will be. Right? And because we can't let our legacy end with the civil rights struggle. You heard my story. And I graduated actually from high school in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York in 1963, but it was 1962. I was walking the streets of Harlem. I was on 125th Street, right down the block from the Apollo in Lenox Avenue. And I was just sort of sightseeing, and I was a young kid, a teenager, just interested in the world. And there was a young man standing on a soapbox, literally, and a crowd began to gather around him. And I just fell into line and I gathered around him as well. And you might remember this person. His name is at that time, it was Stokely Carmichael. He later changed his name to Kwame Ture, and he married the beautiful South African song stylist Miriam Makeba, and he moved to Africa. But Stokely Carmichael said something so powerful that day. I'm now 17 years old, that it registered deeply in my subconscious mind. And I didn't really fully understand this until I grew up and matured and understood what my life needed to be committed to. So I'm going to repeat to you verbatim what Stokely Carmichael said on 125th Street in Harlem in 1962. He said that no black person in this country makes any advancements solely based on his or her talent or worth, that all individual advancement is based on mass struggle, and that we make no progress in this world without shedding our blood. Therefore, your advancement and success does not belong to you. It belongs to the people. And if you do not use your success or advancement for the benefit of your people, it is a betrayal of the people who shed their blood for you. That was a mic drop moment in our lives and in my life. No question about it. We must change. We must evolve. We must be committed to transformation. Let me say that a different way. The greatest gift that you have to give is that of your own self-transformation. It's difficult. Change is not easy. God is constantly talking to us, telling us exactly what to do, but most people choose not to listen. Why, Dr. Fraser? Because he is asking us to change, and change is difficult. In fact, you will never change that which you tolerate. You will only change when you get angry. People will not change when they see the light. People will change when they feel the heat. The great late Nobel and Pulitzer Prize winning Toni Morrison said it beautifully too. She said it different than Stokely Carmichael, but she said it beautifully. She said, if you are free, you need to free somebody else. And if you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. The great John Henrik Clark, the Dr. John Henrik Clark, the mentor to Malcolm X. He was from Harlem. He said, take what you do best and do it for your people. I deeply believe that. At the Power Networking Conference, now named the Power Networking Experience, I always open, I should say, with the keynote address on the state as I see it of Black America. The title of this year's opening remarks was Negro Please. Now let me spell Negro for you. Capital N-E, capital G-R-O-W. Negro, please. Because we're either going to rise or die. And we must provide the solutions for the mindset and consciousness and new habits that we must have for the next 100 years. Black America is experiencing on our watch an existential crisis. In fact, statistics say that Black baby boomers will be the first generation of Africans in America to give birth to another generation of Africans in America that will not do better than them. So in the 400-year history of our people in this country, brothers and sisters, we are the only generation, baby boomers, who will raise another generation that will be worse off. We cannot allow that to happen. It certainly will not, and I will not contribute to that on my watch. So there are 5 critical areas. I don't really have the time to unpack completely all the facts and statistics relative to these 5 areas that we must work on aggressively as we grow and change as a culture and as people. But what is the number one challenge that's an existential crisis? And that is the Black family, which is exacerbated by toxic Black male-female relationships, and marriage in our culture is in ruins. It's down from 85% in the 60s when I was a kid and growing up in the 50s and 60s, now down to 34%. And it is now projected, based on all facts and statistics, over the next 20 years, unless we fix it, that the marriage rate in the Black community will be in the low teens. This is also exacerbated by the fact that 72% of our children are born out of wedlock, and 80% of our children are raised in a single-parent household, principally by the woman. Let me give you a frame for that. There is no culture in the history of this world that has risen to maximize their full human potential without family being at the center of that culture. We must fix this. Let me give you some what I call comparative statistics on what impact this has had based on the wealth of each culture. There are 5 cultures, major cultures in America. White people, in terms of median household income, dominated number 1 for over 300 years. Today, white people are number 3. The culture with the highest median household income in America today are East Indians at $124,000 a year. What is the marriage rate in the East Indian community? 94%. Second are Chinese Asians at $109,000 a year. What is the marriage rate in the Chinese Asian community? About 65%. Third are white people. What is the median household income among white people today? 81,000. Marriage rate is down to 57%. Fourth are Hispanics at $63,000 a year, marriage rate at 67%. And at the bottom of the list are Black people at $53,000 median household income, marriage rate 34%. 71% of our women are not married, and 29% of our women will never get married. 66% of our men are not married, and 34% of them will never get married. Without couples, you have no families. Without families, you have no community. Without community, you have no tradition. And without tradition, you have no culture. We must find the right kind of partner. Because if you can't build with them, don't chill with them. That would be my short take on that. What is the number one thing that men are looking for from our women? Peace. We work hard. We're the most hated group in America, according to USA Today. They did a national study on what are the most liked groups, male, females in America, and Black men was at the bottom. We want peace. When we come home after sword fighting on the streets of our communities, we want peace. What's the second thing we want? Respect. What's the third thing we want? We want cooperation. We want friendship. We want support, trust, and approval. That's what we want. We know what our women want. We make a vow when we put our hands on the Bible. It's in the vows to provide and protect. So whether our woman chooses to work, that's wonderful. That adds value, economic value to the family. But if she chooses not to work and spend her time raising children, the ultimate responsibility for provision is on us, is the primary responsibility. So we must work on this thing called marriage. We must work on it because it will predict the future for our people. I'll put a pin in that. That's a whole talk by itself. And at some point in time, we may pick up on that in a part two. The second biggest challenge that we have is building and scaling our businesses. Building and scaling our businesses. How will we do that? We will do that through strategic alliances, joint ventures, and partnerships. Right now, we have the lowest per capita of businesses of the 5 largest cultural group in the United States. Now, that's the downside. The upside is, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, they do a report every 5 years on business development, number of businesses per cultural group. Today, right now, 3.7 million Black-owned businesses in America, the largest number of businesses that we have ever achieved. Up 35% from the last reporting period. Do you realize that 35% of those businesses are by Black women? So we're on the rise in terms of number of businesses. That's the good sign. So we're seeding a lot of new businesses because you cannot harvest unless you plant. Now, what's the downside of those statistics? Only 161,000 of the 3.7 million Black-owned businesses in America employ anybody. And those that employ others, their average annual revenue is $1.5 million a year. That means that 3.5 million of our businesses are sole proprietorships, and the average annual revenue of those sole proprietorships are or is $18,000 a year. And $18,000 a year is below the poverty line. It means that a lot of those businesses are what I call side hustles or an extra stream of income. The good news is that whoever is doing it at whatever level they're doing it at, they're seeding the entrepreneurial spirit, and that's a wonderful thing. It is my hope that by the end of the 21st century, that Black people become the number one employer of Black people. That is the bottom line challenge, that we become the number one employer of our own people. As Jews are the number one employer of Jews, East Indians are the number one employer of East Indians, Asians are the number one employer of Asians, Arabs are the number one employer of Arabs. We too must become the number one employer of our own people. And 3.7 million new businesses is seeding the harvest. So that's the upside. But we have lots of work to do. And again, the goal is scaling our businesses through strategic alliances, joint ventures, and partnerships, developing unity and collaboration. That's the meta objective in building those businesses to where they need to be built. What is the third opportunity, I think, that we need to be looking at for the next 100 years? And that, of course, is building and properly managing our wealth. This is huge. Building and properly managing our wealth. That again, in terms of our wealth, we are the lowest statistically of the largest cultural groups in America. Now, as I said earlier, that is also deeply related to the number one problem, and that is the issue of the Black family. Other cultures have two working on building family wealth, and we are fundamentally dealing with one, which is basically a single parent household. So we have to work on building and managing our wealth. Make no mistake about that. That is incredibly important. To do that, we have to really think deeply about the pillars, the most important, the four pillars, as I call them, for intergenerational wealth. What is the first pillar? The first pillar is the proper understanding, the proper management of accumulated wealth, right? And that requires financial education, financial literacy. We are the most financially illiterate people in this country. We didn't learn about money at home. In fact, it was persona non grata to ask your parents about money. We didn't learn about it in school, and we didn't learn about it at church. So fundamentally, we are financially illiterate. But now all of that is changing. There is no excuse. Financial education workshops, seminars, even in our churches today, the more progressive churches, Wednesday is a Bible study day, and Thursday or Friday is financial education day. So there's a ton of opportunities to get the knowledge. There are no secrets in this country. All kinds of books being written about it, and places that you can go for next to nothing or nothing to learn how to properly manage accumulated wealth. What is the second pillar for the intergenerational transfer of wealth? Real estate. Real estate. Real estate. There's probably no person worth any number of dollars of significance without real estate somewhere in their portfolio. What's the first thing God gave? Real estate. What's the first thing God gave Isaac? Real estate. Real estate. Real estate. Home ownership. That is the biggest building block for most people's wealth. Real estate. Then financial education. And we can go on and on and on. It is the formula for, in fact, solving this problem, this opportunity, this challenge is there. The knowledge is there. The opportunity to get this knowledge, I can't say it enough, is there, right? And now when we talk about money, we used to be stuck in the 3 R's when we were learning, right? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. But there's a new 6 R. And what is the 6 R? The 6 R is risk, rivalry, research, relationships, rewards, and results. Those are the new 6 R's. There are 5 kinds of money goals, right? There's living, that's a money goal, enough money to live. Entertainment, to some extent, some portion of that money, we are going to entertain ourselves, right? Investment, right? Because you should be investing and not necessarily saving. Yeah, you should have a savings account, but at 2% a year, the only money you should have in there is emergency money, enough money for 6 months or so. But other than that, every other penny you earn that you can take off the top or take off the bottom, wherever you want to take it from, should be invested. There's a whole art and science to investing, and all of that knowledge is out there. There are tons of people that look like us who are teaching this. So learn how to properly invest. And then there's what I call your second life money. That's money for when you retire. You will need a couple of $1 million if you decide to retire, to maintain your retirement and a comfortable retirement, and to live in a manner in which you become accustomed to for the balance of your life. And then there's what I call kiss my ass money, right? So there's 5 kinds of money that you should be working on and should have goals to fulfill, right? So money. So let's get on board with learning how to build and manage and to properly manage our wealth. This is absolutely critical. Now, what is the fourth big opportunity that we have for the 21st century? And that is to understand the power of the human connection. The power of the human connection. There is no success that you can attain, sustain, or maintain on your own by yourself in a vacuum. Right? You can't. It's just impossible. Right? Introduce me to your 5 closest friends, and that will tell me who you are. As they know and as they go, so go you. What am I really saying to you? Don't spend major time with minor people. People going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. People doing nothing want you to do nothing with them. If you want to change your life, change your relationships. Introduce me to your 5 closest friends, and that will tell me who you are. God's placing importance on the power of the human connection is very clear what he did to ensure that we would connect with each other. He gave us 2 things. He gave us sex and money. Now, sex. Let me unpack that for a moment. The inspiration for sex is ecstasy. There's no feeling like it. But that is not the goal of sex. The goal of sex is procreation, so that we can produce more of God's children to serve us and for us to serve. Money. How do you earn money? This is genius. How do you earn money? Through service. And the more skills you have, the more service you can provide. And the more service you can provide and the better you are at those skills, the larger the number of people you can serve. And through service, you get what I call certificates of appreciation. Some people call it money. So as you serve, as you give, you get. You ain't giving, you ain't getting. If you have nothing, it's because you've given nothing. right? That you cannot take out of life that which you have not put into life. Therefore, uh, that's the whole notion of you have to give to get. Again, you ain't giving, you ain't getting. You can't take out of the bank that which you have not put into the bank. So, understanding this is critical in terms of building wealth, building a network, nurturing that network. Again, let me say it, let me repeat it again. There is no success that you can attain, sustain, or maintain on your own by yourself in a vacuum. Let me say that a different way. Don't spend major time with minor people. People going nowhere want you to go nowhere with them. People doing nothing want you to do nothing with them. If you want to change your life, change your relationships. It's no more complicated than that. Change your relationships. And no one is, there are no exceptions to that rule when I say that. I mean, I'm not just talking about friends, I'm also talking about family. People ask me all the time, Dr. Fraser, how did you get to Cleveland, Ohio? I said, running away from my family. You must remove toxic people from your life. This is incredibly important because if you don't, you're not getting where you're going. And you must discern who those people are, and you must bless them and release them. Networking is critical. Effective networking is essential. It helps us to establish trust among each other. It helps us to establish unity, and it helps us to establish the spirit of collaboration. This has to be enculturated in our people. Now, number 5, a huge challenge, and that is preparing our children properly for succession and legacy. You see, the number one goal of your succession plan are your children. And your children will certainly your first legacy. What is a legacy? A legacy is something you've done so significant that when you leave us and the people that you have impacted by this thing that you have done, the raising of your children, let us say, every time they mention your name, you live again. That's a legacy. And we can all think of hundreds of people that we call out and names that we continually reference and repeat, right? They live again. Every time your name is repeated, you live again. So preparing our children for succession and legacy. It's sort of a selfish goal because we want our children to succeed us in a healthy way. And therefore, we want our children to be our first big legacy. This is extremely critical. So we have to work on our children. I don't know what you have been watching or what you've been seeing. If you spend any time on social media, and it's almost impossible not to because to some degree we're all addicted to it. We have moved from the large screen television to the small screen. In fact, the Nielsen organization about 8 years ago did a major study on television viewing by cultural group. Who do you think won that? We did. It found that African Americans, this is 8 to 10 years ago, African Americans watched on average 72 hours of television a week. That's 10 hours of television a day. Anybody watching 10 hours of television a day needs their ass kicked. Now, we have moved from watching television that is now what it used to be. It's now from 10 hours to 5 hours. Where do you think the other 5 hours went? It went to the small screen the cell phone, the thing that's in your back pocket or it's in your purse. Right? It's easy to get to. Everything that you possibly want to know, anything that you want to read about, any of the craziness that is going on in this country, especially with our young people, it's right there for you to see 24/7. I am not happy with what I see. I hope that you're not happy with what you see, but that responsibility is on us. We must fix this. And I think we will, but it will take time. And I know that there are a million reasons why we are where we are. We have had a very, very dark upbringing. When I say upbringing, I'm talking the last 400 years. We are we're recovering from the most dramatic and the most horrific form of slavery ever invented in the history of humankind. Slavery was not invented when we were brought from the continent to America. Slavery has been around for thousands of years, but nothing like the slavery we experience being brought here in chains. We're the only non-immigrant group in America. We were brought here in chains. Why was our slavery so terrible? Because it was intergenerational slavery. So if I was brought here as a young person, let's say 400 years ago, when I grew up, had a child, my child was automatically enslaved. And when my children had children, they were automatically enslaved. When my children had children, they were automatically enslaved. And this went on for 12 to 13 generations. That has never existed in the history of slavery throughout the entire world. So it was a psychological holocaust on people of color. So there are lots of reasons why we are not where we need to be. But I say this to you, that was then and this is now. That was then and this is now. I urge you, never use racism as a reason to fail. You know why? Because if you use racism as a reason to fail, you're going to fail. Because there is racism. And therefore, racism wins and you lose. I refuse to lose. You, too, should refuse to lose. Now, quickly, I want to do a flyover on a talk that I give around the world. And it's called The 7 Biggest Mistakes That We Make When Networking That Will Ruin Your Reputation and Destroy Your Business. I'm going to start with number 7. I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot view. This by itself is an entire talk. What are those mistakes? I'm going back to this whole notion of the power of the human connection because it's everything. It's everything. We have to master it. We're better now than we have ever been. God downloaded a book in me, let's say it was 35 years ago, and it was called Success Runs in Our Race, The Complete Guide to Effective Networking in the Black Community. It is a modern day classic. It is required reading in 57 historically Black colleges. It is the book that started the networking conversation in Black America and ultimately started the networking movement. It is the book that you can still purchase on Amazon. You realize, other than the Bible and some modern or some old classics, there are very few books that still can be purchased on Amazon that's 35 or more years old. Success Runs in Our Race is one of those books. Read the book. And you can unpack some of these mistakes and how to resolve them significantly through strategies and tactics that will take your life to a whole new level. All of that is unpacked in this book. You can pick it up on Amazon for $12 in paperback. What is the 7th biggest mistake that you make? I have been teaching and practicing this for 40 years. I've given out 32,000 business cards. And people used to say to me, Dr. Fraser, aren't you worried um, people are going to bug you? And you're never going to you're never going to be able to have a moment's peace with that many people having your personal information. I said, no, I'm not worried at all. Here's what I've learned about our culture. Of the 31,000 business cards that I have given out, but I don't really give out my cards. I give them by request. And you shouldn't give out your cards either. When they're requested, that's when you give it. I said, of the 31,000 business cards that I've given out uh, over the last 40 years, 99.99999% of Black people that got my business card had never, ever followed up. The fortune is in the follow up. Follow up. Don't request a business card and don't follow up. And it's super easy now with text messages and emails and all kinds of ways of following up with people and cell phones. It's just easy to follow. The fortune is in the follow up. Okay. Follow up within 24 to 48 hours. I cannot even begin to tell you what has happened in my life simply because I followed up a card that I requested from a person I thought that was very important at the time we were engaged. I followed up. What's the biggest mistake that we make typically when networking? A poor first impression. People are not interested in your life story when they're at a big meeting. They want to know just enough about you to pique their interest so that they will want to know more about you later, but not right now while we're in we're out here at a conference or at a workshop or a seminar. So you've got about 15 to 30 seconds to pique their interest. And so a proper introduction really contains 5 things: who you are, where you're from, and what you do. Those are the first 3 things. The last 2 are the most important. How do you add real value? And if you add real value, quantify it and prove it to me. Okay. Let me give you my self introduction. Hi, I'm Dr. George Fraser from Cleveland, Ohio, by way of Brooklyn, New York. I'm the CEO and founder of FraserNet Incorporated. I write books and speak on economic development and effective networking. I help people turn acquaintances into friends and contacts into contracts. And over the last 40 years, I've helped over 10,000 people secure more than $3.5 billion in new business. Good to meet you. Memorize that. Who you are, where you're from, and what you do. The 2 most important: how do you add real value? That's what they're listening for. And then quantify. If you add real value, tell me how much value you've added. Okay. By the way, that self-introduction took about 18 seconds. It's the story of my 80 years of life. Practice it. Write it down. Rehearse it. Okay? So a poor first impression is the 6th biggest mistake. Oh, and I would say that the second part of that is that there are a lot of people, when you ask for a business card, they don't have one. But today, that's really easy to solve with all of the electronic business cards and all the simple things that you can have right on your cell phone. So always be prepared to give people information about you if they need that information about you, that it's handy and it's easy to communicate or to give it to them. Okay. Now, what is the 5th biggest mistake that we tend to make when networking? We don't spend enough time networking. We commissioned the Gallup organization to do a national longitudinal study on the differences between Black networking habits and white networking habits. A couple of interesting things came out of that study. White people, at the time we did the study, was spending about 40% of their time working on cultivating, nurturing, and building relationships at work, at home, and in the community. Black people were spending at that time about 10% of their time working on networking. In fact, 40% of the audience, the Black audience, said that networking wasn't really that important. My education was more important. Well, education is profoundly important, but building relationships and developing those relationships and meeting and populating uh, your access to human and intellectual resources, it's pretty critical. So spend at least 20 to 30% of your time cultivating, working on, and developing relationships at work, at home, and in the community. You've got three kinds of networks that you've got to work on for all passages of your life. And if you're lucky, you'll get eight passages, and each passage is about 10 years. All right. You're gonna work on your personal network. These are the people that cheer you on, lift you up, right? And have your back. Let's call that your network at home. Things are not right at home, it's going to have a domino effect in the other parts and portions of your life. Second, you have to work on what I call an operational network. These are the people that help you to get specific tasks done in life, right? You help them, they help you. These people come in and out of your life during the various passages of your life and different tasks that you're assigned to do, they're assigned to do. They find you, you find them. That's your operational network. You work on that all your life. And the third and final network is your strategic network. These are the people that are smarter than you. These are the people that will drag you into the 21st century kicking, screaming, and crying. These are the people who are where you want to be. These are the people that ultimately can be your mentors and coaches. Spend more time working on cultivating and developing relationships. It's critical. What's the fourth biggest mistake we tend to make? We have no networking system. Everything is a system. When I talk to entrepreneurs, I tell them, if you don't have a system, you don't have a business. I don't know what the hell it is, but it isn't a business. A system is something you can replicate, duplicate, and scale. Right? The same thing with networking. Develop a system, develop some habits that you do every single day that remind you or clues you to talk to people, reach out to people, follow up on business cards, check on people, check on family, check on friends, check on old friends, check on customers that you sold things to, but don't call them and try to sell them anything. Just check on them and see how they're doing. The last thing you want is when you call somebody you sold something to think that, oh no, he's going to try and or she's going to try and sell me something. So work on a uh, those three networks. Number four, I'm sorry, that was number four. That's a system. Number three is you bring nothing to the table, right? You must become a subject matter expertise. You must have that expertise, right? Which means that you have to be committed to constant, never ending improvement, lifelong learning, and personal growth and development. Read, brothers and sisters, read. There's an old saying, you want to hide something from a black man? Put it in a book. No, you can't be average. I don't know what your parents taught you, but my parents taught the 11 that they had, that we have to be twice as good to get half as much, because if you're black in America uh, and you're mediocre, you better leave, because you're going to be marginalized and ultimately be destroyed. Bring something to the table. Focus on personal growth and development, lifelong learning, and constant, never ending improvement. What's number two? Number two, and you'll learn this over time as you get older and wiser, you will find out that your emotional intelligence, your EQ, will be far more important than your IQ. What is emotional intelligence? There are all kinds of wonderful books on it, but read about it. It is the ability to control your five most important emotions of happiness, sadness, anger, fear, and shame. Control those emotions. In fact, that's the number one skill that we all must develop, and that is the controlling of our own personal emotions. That's number two. And what's number one, Dr. Fraser? Most people are networking to get something, wrong. You network to give. And as you give, you get. You ain't giving, you ain't getting. As I said earlier, if you have nothing, it's because you've given nothing. Those are the 7 biggest mistakes. Now, here is some upsides here. There's been a major study, and I'm going to end on this. There's been a major study by the New England Journal of Medicine on the 3 most productive periods of your life. A longitudinal study, a national study. The 3rd most productive period of your life is between 50 and 60. The 2nd most productive period of your life is between 70 and 80. The number 1 most productive period of your life is between 60 and 70. What does that mean? It means that between 0 and 49, you haven't done a damn thing yet. All you're doing is preparing, overcoming the obstacles, learning the lessons from those obstacles so that you can do your best work. This is how God has designed us. Isn't it beautiful that we do our best work in the final 30 years of our lives? So I'm doing my best work. And really, it's true. 0 to 49, I was learning. The legacy pieces that I have thought of and developed have all come in the latter periods of my life. One is the Black Business Legacy Hall of Fame Museum and Metaverse. In fact, we have a little video on that. I'm going to tee it up when I complete this. It's just 2 minutes long. But this is what I call my legacy project. This has happened during this period of my life. So that's what I wanted to say. Those are the messages with the time that I had that I wanted to give you. I want to encourage you also to come to the Power Networking Conference, now called the Power Networking Experience. We're in our 23rd year. We just finished it. We're planning for our 24th year. We'll be in Atlanta, Georgia, 11th through the 14th. This year it was in Charlotte. It was wonderful. And this is a place where you connect, you grow, and you prosper so that you can fulfill the ultimate goal of learning, earning, and returning. You see, we have a lot of us learning and a lot of us earning, but not enough of us returning. And therein lies our problem. We need for you to learn and then to return. So what I'd like to do is make you a special offer. This is an early bird special. Remember, it's next June. I want to give you, let's call this a hold the date offer. If you go on the website, powernetworkingex.com, Power Networking Conference, Power Networking EX, powernetworkingex.com. You'll see the entire menu from this year. You can look at what the registration fees are. An adult registration at our conference is $1,500. And we encourage all of our attendees to bring a young person, a student, 17 to 25. Our young people need to be sitting at the feet of our masters. I can't even imagine what I would be today had something like this been available to me when I was 16 or 17 or 18 years old. Right? So a student registration is $800. So when you put the student registration together with an adult registration, that's $2,300. So right now, super early bird special. You can do both one adult and one student in Atlanta, Georgia, the Mecca of Black America, for $499. $499. The offer is good for 30 days. The way you get it is you simply email me at gfraser@frasernet.com. That's gfraser, Fraser, like it's spelled on the screen, gfraser@frasernet, one word, .com. In the subject line, put "I'm in." In the body of the email, put your full name and your cell number. Full name and cell number. Full name and cell number. We'll call you personally, and we will handle our business over the phone by credit card. So that's a one-time offer. It's good for the next 30 days. Talk to your loved one. See if you can convince them to come and join us at what Forbes called one of the top 5 conferences in America not to be missed. I'm Dr. George Fraser. I'll see you next year at the Power Networking Conference, now called the Power Networking Experience. And keep doing God's work. And remember, as I said earlier, the number one gift that you have to give is that of your own self-transformation. God loves you, and so do I.
The battle for us for the 21st century must be on the battlefield of wealth creation. These things have resulted in a lack of clarity of purpose, brothers and sisters, a lack of goals and destination, a lack of criticism with the constructive flavor in our community, a lack of passion and anger, a lack of collective output and multiple leadership. That's what it has resulted in.
For over 250 years, we focused on our fight for freedom and spent the next 100 years fighting Jim Crow and for the promise of justice, equity, and inclusion. Now, it is time to inject Dr. King's final message of economic empowerment into our narrative. For the next 100 years, we must focus on economics to mitigate the enormous black and white wealth gap and the effects of economic apartheid. Despite the fact that there are 110 Black history museums in America, none exclusively focuses on our contribution to capitalism, entrepreneurship, and business. Over 20 years ago, one man, Dr. George C. Fraser, had a vision to create a business ecosystem that would acknowledge, celebrate, and incubate Black business excellence. Introducing the Black Business Legacy Hall of Fame Museum and Metaverse and Global Entrepreneurship Center. The 200,000 square foot multi-level museum and global center will be an iconic structure built in Atlanta, Georgia, showcasing historical legacy of African American entrepreneurship and innovation. The Black Business Legacy Hall of Fame Museum and Metaverse will leverage immersive technology to showcase multi-themed pavilions reflective of our past and present global Black entrepreneurs and innovators. Visitors will be enthralled by the Black Business Metaverse world, built to provide an immersive and fully interactive experience that opens up endless possibilities for entrepreneurs, business owners, and content creators. The Global Center for Advancement of Entrepreneurship will recognize, incubate, and accelerate Black entrepreneurship and provide a transformative learning experience where Black entrepreneurs can live, collaborate, focus, and innovate to develop an economic mindset and build sustainable wealth. Over time, the Black Business Hall of Fame and Museum will become a powerful new raison d'être, reason for being, for global communities worldwide, setting the standard for generations to come.